Welcome to Fractured Chaos.
I never thought I'd be the girl sitting alone in her car at 3 a.m., scrolling through 3 years of text messages, trying to pinpoint the exact moment my reality became someone else's creation. But here I am. My name is Bonnie, and for 1,095 days, I believed a beautiful lie. A lie so intricate, so carefully constructed, that even now, knowing everything, I sometimes wish I could crawl back inside it. You know what's funny? The day I met Ryan, I was actually planning to swear off dating for a year. My best friend Jamie had this whole find yourself intervention staged. We were supposed to go hiking, then burn symbolic lists of our toxic traits in relationships. Instead, I canceled on her because the hot guy from apartment 4C finally asked me out. Just one drink, I told her. What could possibly go wrong? 3 years and one completely shattered sense of self later. I know exactly what can go wrong. But the truly sick part? I still have nights where I wonder if giving up everything was worth it. If I'd do it all again. Spoiler alert, he wasn't even from apartment 4C. That was just the first lie. The beginning was, God, it was intoxicating. Ryan had this way of making me feel like the most fascinating person he'd ever met. He'd lean in when I talked. Actually listen, not that half-assed pretending most guys do while waiting for their turn to speak. And the attention he gave me, it was all-consuming. 8-hour dates that felt like minutes. Midnight texts analyzing every detail of our conversations. Inside jokes that developed their own inside jokes. 6 weeks in, he gave me a key to his place. I've never done this before, he whispered, pressing it into my palm like some sacred talisman. But there's something different about you. There was this one night, after we'd been dating maybe 3 months. We were lying in his bed and he traced his finger along my collarbone, then said, I've never told anyone this, but sometimes I hear music that isn't there, like full orchestras playing in empty rooms. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what it means to truly know someone. I started spending more time at his place than mine. It just made sense. His apartment was closer to my office, and honestly, I loved waking up to him making coffee in that ridiculous silk robe he wore. My friends teased me for falling so fast, but I didn't care. When you know, right? Then came that first strange moment. I was organizing his bookshelf, because I'm that girl who color coordinates everything, when I found a leather-bound journal wedged behind his economics textbooks. The thing practically fell into my hands. I shouldn't have opened it, but, well, I did. Inside were pages and pages of what looked like coded entries. Not another language exactly, more like a substitution cipher. Random letters, numbers, symbols. Scattered throughout were little sketches, eyes mostly, dozens of eyes, some with my exact eye shape, and one phrase repeated over and over, the red bird knows where bones are buried. When I confronted him, Ryan looked scared, not angry, not caught, genuinely frightened. He snatched the journal away and said, That's private therapy work. My psychologist has me document my intrusive thoughts. Then he held my face between his hands and said, I have OCD, Bonnie. I've been too ashamed to tell you. I felt awful for invading his privacy. I spent the next week bringing him little gifts, making his favorite meals, trying to show him I accepted all parts of him. I even told him about my own struggle with anxiety in college, thinking it would help him feel less exposed. What I didn't tell him was that I'd taken a picture of one of the pages, or that late at night, I'd tried to decode it, convinced there was some message hidden in the symbols. I never cracked the code, but 3 months later, I ran into his sister at a department store. When I mentioned Ryan's OCD, she looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Ryan doesn't have OCD, she said. He's never been to therapy a day in his life. That night, I searched his apartment while he was at poker night with the boys. The journal was gone. So were all his economics textbooks. In fact, there wasn't a single trace of the college he claimed to have attended. Ryan didn't go to Princeton. Ryan didn't even finish community college. The first foundation stone of my reality cracked that night, but it was only the beginning. Have you ever had a splinter so deep under your skin that you can't quite reach it? That's what living with a half-truth feels like. It burrows in, and no matter how you contort yourself, you can't extract it completely. After discovering the Princeton lie, I did something I'm not proud of. I created a fake social media account, Emma, a new girl in Ryan's supposed graduate program. I spent hours crafting her profile, making her just attractive enough to catch attention, but not so beautiful she'd seem fake. Then I sent Ryan a friend request. He accepted within minutes. For 2 weeks, I watched him flirt with Emma, talking about classes that didn't exist, professors he'd never had. He even invited her for coffee to discuss their shared thesis interests. My stomach churned as I typed out Emma's responses, playing along, setting a trap for the man I still slept beside every night. The morning of their planned coffee meeting, I showed up instead of Emma. The look on his face, God, I'll never forget it. Not shame, not remorse, just calculation. Like a chess player who'd lost a piece but was already 3 moves ahead. I knew it was you the whole time, he said, his voice eerily. I was trying to teach you a lesson about trust. And the most twisted part? By the end of that conversation, I was apologizing to him for not trusting him, for testing him. He showed me evidence, doctored emails, student ID cards, even graduation photos. All fakes, I'd later learn, but masterfully done. That night, he proposed, right there in the middle of his carefully constructed fantasy world. And I said yes. The ring, at least, was real. I had it appraised. 2 months into our engagement, I started noticing money missing from my account. Small amounts at first, $50 here, $100 there. When I brought it up, Ryan suggested I must be forgetting purchases. You've been so stressed about the wedding, he'd say, massaging my shoulders. It's affecting your memory. Was it? I started keeping meticulous records of every penny I spent, but then receipts would disappear from my wallet. Notes would vanish from my phone. I started questioning everything. Had I really spent $200 at Target last Tuesday? Had I actually ordered that expensive meal delivery service? I changed my passwords, all of them. The withdrawals stopped. Then one evening, Ryan left his phone unlocked on the counter while showering. A text flashed on the screen. Transfer complete. She suspect anything? My hands shook as I opened the message thread. It was from someone named Viper, just rows of numbers and confirmations. Thousands of dollars moving between accounts. My accounts. I took screenshots and emailed them to myself. Then I did something truly dangerous. I replied to Viper, need to accelerate timeline. She's getting suspicious. Ryan's shower turned off just as Viper responded. Too risky. Stick to protocol. Remember Santo Domingo? Santo Domingo? I had no idea what that meant, but it sounded ominous enough to send me spiraling. I deleted the messages and put his phone back exactly as I'd found it. That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to his peaceful breathing, wondering if I was sleeping next to a criminal. Or worse. The next day, I called off work and followed him. He said he was going to his investment firm downtown. Instead, he drove to a storage facility on the outskirts of town. I watched from across the street as he punched in a code and disappeared inside. 3 hours he stayed in there. When he emerged, he was carrying nothing, but his expression was different, lighter, like a man who'd just unburdened himself of something heavy. After he left, I walked into the facility office and did the only thing I could think of. I flirted my way past the attendant. My fiancé just left, I giggled. And I need to add something to our unit, but silly me, I forgot the code. A quick glance at my engagement ring, a few details about Ryan's appearance, and the attendant led me right to it. Unit 237, the code, my birth date. Inside was nothing but a single wooden chair facing an empty wall. And taped to that wall, photos, dozens of them. All of me, sleeping, working, shopping. Photos spanning back years before we'd even met. And scrawled across the wall in what looked like red lipstick was that phrase again, the red bird knows where bones are buried. You ever feel like you're playing a part in someone else's movie? Like you showed up thinking it was a romantic comedy, but halfway through, the genre switched to psychological horror? After finding the storage unit, I should have run. Any sane person would have. Instead, I did what trauma bonds make you do. I convinced myself there must be an explanation. Maybe he was planning some elaborate surprise. Maybe the photos were for a secret art project. Yeah, I know how that sounds now. I became a different person, cautious, calculating. I started keeping a secret journal of my own, documenting everything. Times he left the house, numbers he called, inconsistencies in his stories. I hid it inside a hollowed-out self-help book called Living Your Best Life. Ironic, right? Meanwhile, I played the adoring fiancé. When's the wedding? Friends would ask, and I'd beam and squeeze Ryan's hand while my insides twisted into knots. One night, I found a prescription bottle in his gym bag. Risperidone. I Googled it. An antipsychotic medication. The patient name? Julian Mercer, not Ryan Harris. When I confronted him, he broke down crying. Told me he had changed his name years ago to escape an abusive father. That Julian was the scared boy he used to be, and sometimes he needed medication to keep him at bay. He showed me official name change documents and childhood photos of a bruised little boy. I held him all night as he sobbed about his fractured identity. How could I not believe someone in such obvious pain? The next morning, I called in sick again and drove 3 hours to the courthouse where he claimed to have changed his name. No record of either Ryan Harris or Julian Mercer. On a hunch, I visited the pharmacy that filled his prescription. The pharmacist remembered Julian. Apparently, he came in monthly. "Such a shame about his wife," she said casually. My blood ran cold. "His wife?" "Oh!" Her eyes widened. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Patient confidentiality." But the damage was done. I played dumb, nodded along, and left with my heart pounding out of my chest. That night, I waited until Ryan fell asleep, then used his thumb to unlock his phone. There it was, a hidden folder containing everything. Driver's licenses with different names, bank accounts belonging to women across 3 states, and messages, hundreds of them, to women who sounded just like me, trusting, vulnerable, in love with a man who didn't exist. I scrolled until I found photos of her. The wife, Sarah Mercer, beautiful with the same color hair as mine, same general build, same trusting smile. I couldn't find any recent photos of her, nothing in the last 2 years. What I did find was a life insurance policy, $2 million. Beneficiary, Julian Mercer. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I put it back, packed a small bag, and was about to walk out the door when his voice came from behind me. "Going somewhere, little red bird?" He knew. He'd been awake the whole time. Fight, flight, or freeze. That's what they say happens in moments of terror. What they don't tell you is there's a fourth option. Perform. Standing there with my pathetic little overnight bag, caught in the act of escaping, I made a split-second decision that would either save my life or end it. I turned around, tears streaming down my face, real tears, but not for the reason he thought, and collapsed into his arms. "I'm so sorry," I sobbed. "I was going to my sister's. I needed space to think. I found your medication, and I got scared, and I don't know who you are anymore." His body relaxed slightly. I could feel him calculating, adjusting his script. "Bonnie," he whispered, stroking my hair. "I wanted to protect you from the darkness inside me, from Julian. Sometimes he takes over, but I would never hurt you, never." He led me back to bed, held me close, told me elaborate stories about his condition. How Sarah had abandoned him when it got bad. How she'd taken all their money and disappeared to South America. "Santo Domingo?" I murmured, watching his reaction closely. His eyes flickered, just for a millisecond. "What did you say?" "Nothing," I whispered. "Just something I read about mental health retreats in the Dominican Republic." He studied my face for what felt like eternity. Then he smiled, that beautiful, terrible smile, and kissed my forehead. "Let's get married next month," he said. "Why wait? I never want to lose you." For the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I was the excited bride-to-be, picking out flowers and tasting cakes. At night, when Ryan thought I was asleep, I was piecing together the truth. Sarah Mercer hadn't abandoned anyone. Sarah Mercer had accidentally drowned during a romantic getaway to Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic, not far from Santo Domingo. There had been an investigation, but ultimately, her death was ruled accidental. 2 months later, Julian Ryan collected the insurance money. Then he moved here and became Ryan Harris. I needed proof, hard evidence I could take to the police. But how do you investigate a potential murder while living with the murderer? Here's where Jamie finally comes back into the story. My best friend, the one I'd blown off 3 years ago for my first date with Ryan. I reached out to her, told her everything. Together, we hatched a plan. The bachelorette party, one last girls' weekend before the wedding. Ryan couldn't object without seeming controlling. So off I went with Jamie and 2 other friends to a beach house 3 hours away. Or so he thought. In reality, I flew to the Dominican Republic, found the resort where Sarah had died, bribed my way into seeing incident reports, tracked down the maid who had found Sarah's body. Maria was terrified at first, refused to talk to me. But when I showed her my engagement photos with Ryan Julian, something changed in her eyes. "He push her," she whispered. "I see from balcony. Police no believe me. Say I want money. But I see." She had photos, grainy cell phone pictures she'd taken of Sarah's body before authorities arrived. Close-ups of bruises around her neck, shaped like fingerprints. He'd tell everyone she slipped, hit head, then drown. But I know. I took copies of everything. Flew back just in time to return with my friends from our fake bachelorette weekend. Ryan picked me up at Jamie's house, hugged me tight. "Miss me?" he asked. "Every second," I lied, the evidence burning a hole in my purse. That night, he ran me a bubble bath, brought me champagne. "To celebrate our last few days of being just engaged," he said, clinking his glass against mine. I took a sip, then pretended to sneeze, spilling my drink rather than swallowing it. 20 minutes later, as I pretended to get drowsy in the bath, he came in and sat on the edge of the tub, stroked my cheek with such tenderness it almost seemed genuine. "You know," he said softly, "Sarah loved baths too." My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression dreamy, relaxed. "Who's Sarah?" I mumbled, slurring slightly. He smiled. "No one important. Just another bird who tried to fly away." Then he placed his hands on my shoulders, gently at first, then with increasing pressure, pushing me under the water. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're about to die. That's not exactly right. What flashes through your mind are all the things you should have done differently. As Ryan's hands forced me under the bathwater, I thought about all the red flags I'd ignored, all the lies I'd swallowed, all the times I'd chosen fantasy over reality. But here's the thing about near-death experiences. They have a way of burning through denial. I had prepared for this moment, the moment Ryan would try to make me disappear like Sarah. The taser was taped under the bathtub, waterproofed in plastic wrap, placed there while he was at work that morning. My fingers found it just as my lungs began screaming for air. One press of the button, and 50,000 volts surged through the water and into Ryan's body. Physics is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Water conducts electricity. Ryan learned that lesson the hard way as he convulsed and fell backward, cracking his head against the bathroom tile. I burst out of the water, gasping as he lay twitching on the floor. Not dead. I hadn't wanted to kill him, just incapacitated enough for phase 2. Wrapping myself in a towel, I retrieved the burner phone from its hiding place in the bathroom vent and made 2 calls. First to Jamie, who was waiting nearby with a police detective friend of hers, then to 911. "Help!" I sobbed into the phone. "My fiancé tried to drown me. I think he's hurt. Please hurry." By the time Ryan regained consciousness, he was handcuffed to a hospital bed with 2 police officers standing guard. The Dominican Republic evidence was already being processed, and the detective had a search warrant for Unit 237. They found more than just my photos in that storage unit. They found Sarah's actual passport, her wedding ring, a notebook with detailed plans for collecting her life insurance, and most damning of all, a similar notebook with my name on it. My life insurance policy, taken out in my name with his handwriting forging my signature. My accidental death, scheduled for our honeymoon. Even the amount he planned to collect, $3 million, 3 years of gaslighting, all leading to that moment in the bathtub. The trial lasted 6 weeks. They extradited him to the Dominican Republic first, where he was convicted of Sarah's murder. Then back here for the attempted murder charges, insurance fraud, identity theft, the list goes on. The media had a field day. Black Widow Killer, they called him, though that's usually reserved for women. The drowning groom, my personal favorite, till death insurance do us part. I testified for 3 days straight, looked him in the eye as I detailed every lie, every manipulation, every moment I should have seen the truth but chose not to. Know what he did? He smiled at me, that same charming smile that had first drawn me in 3 years earlier, like this was all just another game between us. The jury deliberated for 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. He's serving consecutive life sentences now. Sometimes I get letters from him, always the same 5 words, "The red bird got away." I never respond. People ask me how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. The truth is, I wasn't blind. I was in love with a masterfully crafted illusion. We all want to believe the beautiful lie over the ugly truth. For a long time after the trial, I couldn't trust myself, couldn't trust my own perception of reality. Therapy helps. So does the support group I started for survivors of psychological abuse. Last month, I went on my first date since Ryan. Nothing serious, just coffee with a kind-eyed math teacher Jamie introduced me to. No spark, no chemistry, but something better. Simplicity, transparency. He is exactly who he appears to be. I still have nightmares about drowning, still check my bank accounts obsessively, still sleep with a taser under my pillow. But I'm reclaiming pieces of myself every day. The Bonnie who existed before Ryan, the Bonnie who might have died in that bathtub. Yesterday, I got a tattoo, a small red bird, breaking free from a cage. Not because I'm defined by what happened, but because I survived it. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't know if that's true. What I do know is this: what doesn't kill you teaches you how badly you want to live. Sometimes I drive out to that storage facility. Unit 237 is empty now, evidence long since cataloged and filed away. I stand there in that empty space and remind myself that this is reality, cold, clear, unvarnished by beautiful lies. And then I walk out into the sunshine, spread my wings, and fly.